Hey guys, sorry I haven't gotten a whole lot of content out on this channel lately. I have been putting a bunch of stuff on the backup channel, so feel free to head over there. There's tons of debates with, philosophers, doctors, etc. that are worth watching. And the reason for that is, I think mostly just that I've been busy with school, I've been busy reading things, busy helping out some activists with some stuff, and I'm just in whatever headspace I'm in. Sometimes I'm not feeling like making a whole bunch of content. But this is one of those videos that I think I kind of have a bit of an obligation to share. Sort of like last year when Dr. Smod destroyed Bart K. Shared that with Vegan Gains, put it up on my channel. We both uploaded it. So now when you search Bart K, it's one of the things that comes up right away. And it hugely discredits him. You just see him getting destroyed by a doctor. Well, I think I probably have a similar obligation here. There's a YouTuber called Haleman. Here's a clip of Haleman being Haleman. So this guy actually has 10,000 subscribers. He's coming up in the carnivore community. And the other day, Dr. Avi, who's now back, and you should all go subscribe to him immediately, he's linked down below, just completely annihilated Haleman. Like, you guys wouldn't even believe the degree of this annihilation. By the end, Haleman is confused about whether objects exist before he sees them. He actually becomes the most extreme form of young Earth creationist I've seen. He starts thinking that the world was created when he was born and stuff. Like, this one's a disaster. Let's put it this way. Put it that way. So basically, I think that I probably have a bit of an obligation to share this because Haleman's kind of popular and it's important to discredit people like that. So enjoy this video of the lunatic Haleman getting completely destroyed by a vegan doctor. Oh, by the way, Haleman uploaded a 7-minute clip of this, tried not to link to the original video. I told him I'd strike him if he didn't link the original video. And he thinks the 7-minute clip makes him look good. I don't. But the whole video makes him look even worse. So, okay, I've rambled enough. Enjoy this video of Dr. Avi obliterating Haleman. Oh, and for the record, Dr. Avi is happy to stomp Bart K through the floor on nutrition anytime. Just come by the server, Bart. We'll be nice and polite. You can look at the videos on the backup channels. We do debates where we just mute everybody else, so only you and Dr. Avi will be able to speak. If you grow the balls, just come on by the server and the wrecking awaits. All right, so we've got Dr. Avi, we've got Haleman. He's I think a carnivore YouTuber would be a fair way to characterize him. They're going to debate veganism. Might be about health, might be about ethics. We'll just see as we go. I'm just going to unmute them now, and then they'll be able to talk. Everyone else is muted.
Hey, how are you?
What's up?
Good, how are you? So what's your position that you'd like to defend? If I can.
Well, what can I say? The vegan diet is trash. It made me anorexic, destroyed my digestion, and yeah, that's it.
If the vegan, yeah, so your position is the vegan diet is trash and it made you anorexic. Is that your position? Or okay. And by trash, do you mean just inferior to the omnivore diet?
Carnivore.
Oh, inferior to the carnivore diet. Okay,
yeah,
but not necessarily inferior to the. Okay. Is it just an anecdote that you have for that, or is there any evidence that you have that a vegan diet is inferior in any way to the carnivore diet?
I've got various studies talking about the various different toxins in plants and how they affect digestion.
Yeah, so when you talk about how they affect digestion, is there any outcome that's terminated in, or is it just saying this is a toxin by this whatever criteria and this is what we speculate will happen?
Yeah, that's the thing. There is no sort of health. There is no sort of health outcome.
Yeah, and the reason
sort of mechanistic stuff.
Yeah, and the reason this is important is because when we look at these quote-unquote toxins and when we try to terminate them in outcomes, what we found is that a lot of these plants that have a lot of these quote-unquote toxins that was shunned mechanistically, when we look at the outcomes, they actually end up doing better. So a classic example was legumes. So legumes have these things a lot of people called anti-nutrients. And There was speculation that there would be problems with digestion because of it, especially in elderly populations that couldn't digest very well. But the issue is when they actually looked at the outcomes, they actually ended up having the lowest all-cause mortality when elderly populations ended up consuming legumes. So just because we have a mechanistic speculation all the time, many times, it turns out to be unreliable and it doesn't actually pan out for the health outcomes. So do you have any evidence in terms of any health outcome that you could point to indicate that the diet you're advocating for is superior in any way? Or that the diet or the vegan diet is inferior? Okay.
There are no health outcome data that would suggest the vegan diet is inferior. It just hasn't. There's no studies that have been done, and nor could I say that an all meat-based diet would be superior either, because that hasn't been studied either. What I can say is from my own personal experience that vegan diet just didn't work out, and I have some mechanistic data to sort of explain why that happens.
Well, we already covered the mechanistic data and why that's very unreliable. Because there's mechanistic data. If you accept mechanistic data as a way of terminating outcomes without actually testing outcomes, and if you accept anecdotes to the same degree, I mean, you could basically argue for literally any diet under the sun with that criteria. So I can get any vegan in here to say, when I went vegan, what happened was, I got all these health benefits. I grew taller. The size of my penis increased. I got more money in my bank account. I mean, these are all things that happened when I went vegan. So, right? You see the problem, right? It's just an anecdote.
Yeah, but the thing is, I trust my anecdote. Like, it's my life. If my health is failing on a vegan diet, then of course I'm going to eat meat again.
Sure. Have you considered that maybe you just... Yeah, go ahead. Go
ahead.
Have you considered that you may have just done the vegan diet poorly, and on average, maybe this is something that actually is superior, or maybe you've done it... I mean, because here's the issue. Like, when you say, I'm going to trust my anecdote, your anecdote is very, very, very unreliable on many, many factors. So the first factor your anecdote is unreliable on is on diseases that have high latency periods. So diseases that have high latency periods are things that in anecdote is very hard to get at, because you would have to do a diet for a very long time in order to assess risk. And that's why these studies measuring outcomes are very useful, because just you may feel good or you may have a certain feeling with a given diet, that doesn't actually tell you anything about high latency period diseases. So that's just one of the many issues with an anecdote.
Well, all I know is my current state of health is going to be the best indicator of my future health, and on a vegan diet, my health was going down the toilet, and so was many other people's.
Can you just tell me in what ways your health was going down the toilet, and how you know that your health is, and future health is?
Yeah, so the first thing was digestion. So obviously, I was eating a lot of... I pretty much tried everything on the vegan diet, all the different foods you can think of, supplements as well. There was some.
When you say digestion, what do you mean?
Your ability to absorb, digest, and assimilate food and the nutrients.
And that's been assessed by what? Like, you've had blood work or what?
Yeah.
And what was your blood work? Like, what were the results?
Basically, my kidneys were fucked. My kidneys weren't really filtering properly.
As measured by what? A high creatinine?
Yeah.
Well, that's very... And you went... What did your doctor say about your high creatinine?
Oh, he said it could be dehydration or something, but...
Yeah, that's not usually... Unless there are certain specific preconditions with prior kidney disease, the only time I'm aware of like diets affecting your creatinine level, and thus the calculated GFR, is if you have pre-existing conditions for your kidney and you also consume like a lot of protein on top of that, can do it. But other than that, it's really not related to the diet. Aside from that specific context,
it actually is related to the diet, because
how so?
One of the biggest problems with kidney disease and kidney stones, and essentially 80% of kidney stones are from calcium oxalate, which can be produced by the body, but can also come from plants and oxalate-heavy rich foods like spinach and various grains.
Yeah, but there's no. But again, there's no. The only outcome-based evidence that kidney stones that are calcium oxalate actually form in higher rates, or kidney stones in general form in higher rates, are some data on ketogenic diets. But we're not. But this wasn't. But again, this is tangential because that wasn't your issue anyway. You didn't have a kidney stone, did you?
I didn't have a kidney stone, but I had.
Then why are you mentioning? Then why are you mentioning calcium oxalate kidney stones? The issue was a tangential issue. Yeah. The issue is you had a lower GFR. It wasn't a kidney stone.
Well,
so
that's
just the tangential. That's just the tangential point.
Yeah, actually, oxalate can affect the kidney filtration by way of physical minerals.
Of course it can, but that wasn't what you had.
Well, right? I can't say I know that for sure, but what I can say,
when people have a kid, I can tell you when people have a kidney stone, they know it. It is incredibly painful.
Yeah, I didn't have These oxalates are microscopic. You don't have to have a kidney stone to have oxaluria.
That's okay. Now you're talking about something else. Now you're talking about now you're talking about these small degrees of precipitation. So you can speculate that that's the case. But again, so then I'm just going to ask you, is there any evidence that you have that a vegan diet increases the rate of this happening?
Well, you just put 2 and 2 together, really. There's
no, that's not how this works.
Spinach and if you overconsume spinach, then you probably increase your likelihood of getting kidney stones. And in fact, in a lot of kidney stone clinics, they will tell you to reduce your consumption of oxalate-rich foods. They'll get you to go on a low oxalate diet.
Yeah, if someone has had if you had prior oxalate kidney stones, then sure. If you're talking about something which doesn't apply to you, and you don't even know that you've had these microscopic small calcium oxalate precipitation degrees, and even if you did, you would just exclude oxalate-rich food from a vegan diet. You can have a vegan diet that is low in oxalate. So it's just tangential on 3 different factors. So the first factor is, number 1, you have no evidence that this actually applies to you. Number 2, even if it did apply to you, it wouldn't follow that you shouldn't go on a vegan diet from that. It would just follow that.
I have no evidence that it applies to me. I actually do. I got an ultrasound. I got my kidney function tested. And when I withdrew oxalate-rich foods, my kidney function improved. And furthermore, when I
that's not that's not evidence. So here's what would be evidence. What would be evidence is A, if you had an ultrasound, the ultrasound actually found a stone. B, if you actually did have a stone. C, the other issue is just because your GFR improved when you went on less oxalate-rich foods, it doesn't actually mean that was the oxalate causing that. It could just be that there was a covariant that you had a high... Hold on.
I'm saying that there's some evidence to suggest it.
That's not but it's not suggested by it because because the most common reason, I can tell you the most common reason for a lower GFR is hydration. It has nothing to do with oxalate. You're hearing hoof prints, you're hearing hoof beats, and you're thinking about zebras instead of horses. The most common cause
kidney function.
Yes, they can. It's a possible
from the diet. My kidney function improves.
Listen. Yes, sure. That we can grant that. But you understand that it's the most likely explanation for that is still a change in hydration status.
Well, actually,
unless
I was probably more hydrated on a vegan.
And how do you know that? Did you look at
fruits?
No, that's your speculation. Was there a specific gravity of your urine that was tested on a vegan diet and now? Okay. I mean, that's how you would check. You can check the specific gravity of your urine. I mean, you wouldn't do it by saying, well, there's more water in fruits, so I'm going to speculate that I was more hydrated. That's not how you do it. That's not going to get you anywhere.
I don't know.
So here's what...
kind of irrelevant anyway. The thing is, I stopped oxalate-rich foods, and my kidneys stopped hurting. And
right, but you understand... But you understand that just because you stop the oxalate-rich foods, it doesn't because you stop the oxalate-rich foods. The most common, based on our understanding, the most common reason a GFR can improve is, and GFRs do improve after they're lower, is because of hydration. That is by far the most common reason that changes. It's not because of this microscopic oxalate precipitation. That's a lot lower. It can happen, but it's a lot lower on the chain in terms of common explanations for why, or likely explanations for why that happens. And moreover, do you even have a history of having any kidney stones at all? Have you ever had a kidney stone? Okay, so you have no history of having a kidney stone. I just don't see why you would speculate that this was this microscopic calcium oxalate crystallization rather than the most common explanation by and large.
There's a few reasons. One, the most prominent reason was because I did get an ultrasound and it did show increased echogenicity of the right kidney, which usually highlights calcium deposits as well.
Did they see any calcium deposits? What was the read of the ultrasound?
They didn't see, they just saw increased echogenicity, which could mean calcium, it could mean increased fat. But it usually just means inflammation.
Yeah, I mean, so that's very inconclusive. I mean, we can posit your kidneys were inflamed. We can posit your kidneys had fat. We can posit there was increased echogenicity. That's a non-specific finding.
Right.
So they didn't find any. Did they find any focal echogenicity? The increased echogenicity that would be consistent with the calcium stone. So, like, we're looking at a stone, focal increased focal echogenicity, or was there just diffuse increased echogenicity? Did you just have ATN? I mean, if it was just
specific.
Right. I mean, you could have just had acute tubular necrosis or something, like, for all I know. And that could account for increased echogenicity. I mean, it doesn't sound like there was this focal increased echogenicity that you would see with a calcium stone, was there? Because then it would be suggestive. The read would be very suggestive of the stone if that was the case.
Well, I know I didn't have stone. I'll just say that I wasn't 100% sure I had an oxalate problem, but I had symptoms.
You had symptoms of what?
Oxalate toxicity.
What were those symptoms of oxalate toxicity?
Pain in kidney, rashes, digestion issues. Itchiness.
Yeah, but you know those are things that can be caused by so many different things. Like,
this is why it's not being talked about. It's because it's not really being studied all that much.
No, it's kidney oxalate stones are very well studied. It's not that they're not studied. It's just that there was no evidence for you having this. When you look at diffuse echogenicity, I'm really skeptical that there was focal echogenicity. The read would have been very suggestive of an oxalate stone or a kidney stone, if that was the case. But the point being here is that even if we grant all of this, like, this is, I mean, the point being is that this is an anecdote and really doesn't make the case for, even if everything is granted, which I'm not going to grant, this would just end up being an anecdote, and it wouldn't make the case that the vegan diet is somehow inferior. It would just mean you had a bad experience on it. So, again, what's the evidence?
Like, do you want studies or something?
Yes, that's exactly what you're being asked for.
There's about 20 studies that I have that show that.
Would you like to? We can go through them one by one.
Quite a few nutrients.
All right. Do you want to present them?
Yeah, just give me a sec. Am I able to post in the chat or something? Okay. Nutrients you can't get from plants. Okay. So there's vitamin A.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, fat-soluble vitamin.
Mm-hmm. Wait. Let's go one by one. So you have so vitamin A. You gonna post something there?
There you go.
Okay, that's not one by one. That's 4 studies, but. All right. Is there a specific point in these studies that you would like to point out? I mean,
Yeah.
what's the
we don't convert beta carotene to vitamin A very well. Most of us.
Mm-hmm. Are you aware of the conversion rate of beta carotene to vitamin A and how much beta carotene one would need to get RD?
I think it was something like the 50% of people in the UK.
You think it was what? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
I don't remember exactly. I haven't read these studies. I just kind of keep them there.
So you're posting studies. Are you posting studies that you just haven't read? You just keep them there and post them?
No, I read them. I just don't remember them.
Oh, you don't remember? Okay. So basically, you don't need nearly as much as people make it out to be. And here's the data for that. So, one can always go for. There's different conversion rates for different foods, but the easiest way to do it is just to take a multivitamin that has beta carotene, synthetic beta carotene. 25 milligrams will be enough, even if you have about a 75% impairment in conversion. You'll get RDA of retinol without a problem, and here's the data for that.
Yeah, but what if you don't want to take pills?
If you don't want to take pills, if you don't want to take pills, what you can do is there are certain foods that you can eat, like sweet potatoes, that have a fairly high conversion rate. So sweet potatoes, you would need like 1 or 2 cups. Sweet potatoes are full of.
They're super high in oxalates. They're dangerous, potentially.
Okay. Do you have any evidence that
someone like me would not be able to eat sweet potatoes? I would have a negative reaction.
The other option would be carrots. Let's see. Yeah, carrots would be another option. Also, there doesn't seem to be any harm by taking
How many
this
carrots would you have to eat to get the adequate amount of vitamin A? You would have to eat an exorbitant amount. It wouldn't be realistic.
It wouldn't be as absorbent as people make it out to be, and we can go through the calculation. But more to the point, before we circle back on that, I just want to point out that there's actually no harm in consuming 25 milligrams of synthetic beta carotene. When in that dose, there's no increase in all-cause mortality. Then what?
Then why isn't it bioavailable?
Well, it is bioavailable.
Well, it's obviously not for some reason. If most of the population can't.
It is in other words, if you take 25 milligrams of synthetic beta carotene, you'll be able to convert enough retinol. And there wouldn't be any side effect of that. There wouldn't be any increase in all-cause mortality. And there's no evidence for a problem of morbidity either.
It's just a bit iffy, taking pills. You'll be able to get from food.
What? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You should be able to get everything you need. B12 is another example.
Wait. Why do you have to get everything? Why do you have to get everything from food and not a supplement?
Because maybe just people want to eat. They don't want to take pills. It's unnatural.
Well, just because something is unnatural doesn't mean
a diet.
You saying it's not natural doesn't follow that someone ought or ought not do that. It could be that something is not natural and they ought to do it. It could be something.
You're saying that the vegan diet is a diet, right?
I'm saying the vegan diet is a diet, but that doesn't mean it has to be a natural diet.
Are you saying that a vegan diet is a complete diet where you can get all your nutrition from food?
No, you naturally no, but non-naturally yes, which is why I don't advocate for a natural vegan diet. I would be crazy to advocate for a natural vegan diet.
So you agree that the vegan diet is a nutritionally diet without supplements?
Wait, I agree that you cannot get all of your nutrients on a vegan diet without supplementation. Yes, I don't see a problem with that though. It could still be the case that a vegan diet with supplementation gets you where you need to go and could be healthier than the diet you're presenting. It doesn't follow that just because supplements may be needed from a diet that the diet is excluded from diets we should consider. Because it could be the case that we have a diet that requires supplementation, yet results in better health outcomes than a diet that doesn't require supplementation, and it would still make sense for us to go with the diet that does require supplementation in that case. So you simply pointing out that a diet may require supplementation doesn't get you to where you need to go. It doesn't make your case that it's inferior.
But it is inferior because you just admitted that you can't get everything you need on a vegan diet.
When we're talking about if your measurement of inferior is that metric, sure. But when people talk about inferior diets, what they generally mean is that they lead to problematic health outcomes with respect to another diet.
So you're basically saying nature didn't do everything.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So you're saying that nature didn't set humans up to eat a nutrient-complete diet?
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not making a claim about what nature set us up to do. I'm just saying that it could very well be the case, and I do think there's evidence to show that this is the case in some cohorts.
So nature is wrong and you should take pills?
Nature, in many cases, is quote-unquote wrong, and by wrong I just mean leads to things that are less healthy, and you should take pills. There are many examples of this.
What? What is the definition of health?
Sure. So one example in which nature is quote-unquote wrong and you should take pills is if you get a bacterial infection. On my view, the quote-unquote right thing to do would be to take antibiotics and treat the infection. The natural thing to do would be to let the infection kill you and die. So just because something is natural doesn't mean it is healthy.
But in terms of diet, don't you agree that a healthy should eat their natural diet?
No, I don't believe that at all. I think that's crazy. Actually, I think that's a crazy belief. I don't think it follows.
Animals should eat carb or plastic.
I don't think. No, that's not what I said. That's not what was said. What was said is it just doesn't follow something natural diet as part of evolutionary history. It doesn't follow from that.
So you don't believe in evolution?
No, I do believe in evolution. I think you're just misunderstanding what evolution selects for. Evolution isn't selecting for things that are going to generate long-term health. Evolution selects for things that are going to get you to where you need to go to reproduce.
How do animals
it just cares about doesn't care about you surviving. It cares about you surviving to the point where you could reproduce and have an increased reproductive fitness. After that, evolution doesn't really care about you.
Nature doesn't care about you surviving.
No, that's not what was said. So I'm going to repeat what I said so you don't strawman me again. Evolution, what it selects for are things that are going to increase reproductive fitness. So you need to survive just to the point where you could reproduce, to the point where you could increase your reproductive fitness. After that, nature doesn't actually care about your survival. As long as your reproductive fitness wouldn't increase, you can die, and it's totally fine. It's not going to select for things that are healthy for you. It's not going to select for a diet. You wouldn't actually expect evolution to produce a diet that's going to be the optimal diet to live to long age and health. That is actually what you would expect evolution to not produce.
So what happens if an animal doesn't eat?
If an animal doesn't eat?
Yep.
Anything?
Yes.
It would starve.
Right.
What is this? What's the relevance?
So then, isn't diet related to survival?
Okay, listen.
In nature?
Look. Yeah. Okay. Look. The fact that no. Listen. The fact that the fact that one needs to consume in order to eat, it doesn't. You're missing the point here. Yes, I'll agree with you that if you do need to eat something, but what I'm disagreeing with you is that the type of things that we would be expected to eat, if we base it on that which we evolved to eat, quote unquote, we would actually expect that to not produce optimal health outcomes. Based on our understanding of what evolution is, we would expect that to produce suboptimal health outcomes, because evolution doesn't care about you being healthy in old age. If you are going to have if you are going to have an increased amount of fitness to the point where you can reach reproductive age and reproduce at the expense of decreased health in older age, that would be selected for.
Okay, do you have any other questions?
I mean, I was answering your questions, but okay, so getting back on topic, so do you have any other evidence that we would need, we would have a problem getting our retinol?
No, that was it.
Oh, that was it. Okay, so so you understand why that doesn't pan out, because we can easily get our retinol just through a multivitamin. With the 25 milligrams of beta carotene is sufficient, even if we had a 75% impaired conversion rate.
I'm questioning the bioavailability of that even.
Okay, would you like to go through the calculation?
Oh, I'd like to see a study or some research showing that vitamin pills are bioavailable.
Sure, we can do that. Would you like that study?
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. There is a study comparing different conversion rates of synthetic beta carotene, and it is a 6-to-1 conversion rate for beta carotene to retinol. One moment.
Were you alone in this
Here's
debate?
the crop here. Wait, I can't hear you.
Is there anybody in this debate, or are we the only?
Yeah, we're the only two. So if you look at this study, synthetic retinol has a 6-to-1 conversion. Just synthetic beta carotene has a 6-to-1 conversion rate. I posted the study in general.
Daily consumption of Indian spinach or sweet potatoes has a positive effect on vitamin A stores. Results.
If you look at 25 milligrams of beta carotene and you do a 6-to-1 conversion rate, we can go through the math right now.
Design.
So it's 25 divided by 6 is 4.16 milligrams. And even if you assume you're only converting about 25%, what you end up getting is 1.04 milligrams of retinol, which ends up being higher than the 900 micrograms RDA for retinol. So you say that we're 75% impaired on conversion of beta carotene to retinol, it still wouldn't make your case, because we would still be able to convert more than our RDA at a dose of synthetic beta carotene that has not been shown to increase all-cause mortality.
No, I'm just reading the study design. Okay, there's that. But what about, let's see, heme iron?
You can get heme iron. You can get heme iron on a vegan diet.
How?
Have you heard of the Impossible Burger?
Yeah, but
You're
why the
aware
hell
that
would
has heme
anyone eat
iron?
that? That's toxic.
Are you? Why is it? How do you know that's toxic?
Oh, just look at the ingredients. I'm pretty sure
What
it's been
about
associated with renal problems.
it? Did you have evidence for that?
I saw an article. Hang on, just search up possible.
Is it a peer? Is this an article or a peer-reviewed publication? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I just kind of heard about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just curious. First of all, just why would one need heme iron? Are you talking specifically about refractory anemia that hasn't responded to iron supplementation?
The reason I say is because I linked a study here. I can't remember what it says. I'll just have a look at it. Dietary intake of iron status of German female vegans. Yeah, so a bunch of vegans were studied, female vegans in Germany, and they found that they were considered iron deficient. And actually, in my experience, a lot of vegans do look really, really pale.
Why would Why would it follow from that we would need heme iron?
Because we suspect that heme iron is more bioavailable than
Right,
iron.
but why? Sure, but why would it follow that they need heme iron? So again, like you can say that it's more bioavailable, that's fine. But again, if you're looking at cases of vegans that just consume low amounts of iron, that's usually fixed by just supplementing iron. And there's technology now at this point. There's technology now to get vegan heme iron. So it's really just a non-starter on all grounds.
But then you admit again that you can't get another nutrient, heme iron.
Well, no, you
can.
You can. You can get there's vegan heme iron. Are you aware of this? There's vegan heme iron that exists now.
I don't know how it's animal iron.
Wait. So 2 points. Number one, you need to make the case that we would need heme iron.
Well,
point number two.
Deficient in iron.
That conclusion doesn't follow. The conclusion that you would need heme iron as opposed to any other form of iron doesn't follow from your study. And number two, you can get heme iron on a vegan diet.
How?
The Impossible Burger is a form of heme iron.
It
has heme iron in it. It's made of wheat protein. It's not an animal product, but it's basically there is a specific modified organism that is commensal to a plant that actually makes heme iron, and it doesn't come from animals. Believe it or not all forms of heme iron come from animal products.
Well, the Impossible Burger is pretty toxic, anyways.
So. How do you know that?
Just look at the ingredients. Would you eat that?
What ingredient is toxic?
I'll just have a look at it.
What ingredient is toxic?
Okay, so it's got wheat protein.
Mm-hmm.
Coconut oil, that's toxic.
How do you know coconut oil is toxic?
It's antimicrobial, it kills cells.
How do you know that that's toxic when consumed? You saying it's antimicrobial doesn't help your case.
Well, yes it does, because it kills your cells, your epithelial.
Do you know what antimicrobial means?
Sorry, bacteria.
Yeah, it can kill bacteria. But okay, so is there any evidence that when the coconut that can or cannot be good depending on which ones they kill, or it could be just neutral if it doesn't kill them in sufficient quantities. Also, coconut oil gets emulsified in the gut, in the stomach, long before it even reaches where most of your microbiome is in the colon anyway. It gets absorbed before it reaches where most of your microbiome is in the first place. So that's just an ignorance of anatomy.
Yeah, but the
no. Listen, you pointing out that it's anti.
Also matter as well. It's not just bacteria in your gut.
You point in your mouth. Listen, the bacteria in your mouth quickly regrow. You're not going to wipe out the bacterial colonies with coconut oil. I got news for you.
It would still.
You don't even do that. Listen, you're not going to even do that with antibiotics. Like this, do you have any evidence for this?
Well, antibiotics are terrible. They decimate people's gut floras.
Antibiotics can decimate people's gut floras, but the mouth microbiota very quickly comes back. I can tell you that right now. Also,
Yeah,
do you have any evidence? Do you in what in toxic concentrations and what concentrations are you aware? Listen, here's the thing: when you claim something is toxic, you can't just make that claim. You actually have to show, like, okay, here's the ingredient, here's what the toxicity level is, here's the concentration, here's how much they're consuming. You can't just say, oh, coconut oil, that's toxic. No, it isn't.
It is. It kills cells.
Do you have any evidence? Where's your evidence?
It has salicylates. And salicylates have been associated with inflammation and have cell-killing properties.
Just because something has salicylates doesn't make it toxic.
It wouldn't have salicylates if it was meant for humans to eat.
That's not true. We give salicylates to humans all the time.
That doesn't mean it's not toxic.
Okay, doesn't mean it is toxic either. Do you have any evidence that it's toxic? You're making the claim here.
Yeah, salicylates.
So what's the evidence? Show me that the level of salicylate in the Impossible Burger is toxic.
Well, I don't have that specific information.
Okay, but you need that specific information. Also, where are you seeing the salicylates?
They're in coconut, pretty sure.
They're in all coconut oils?
I don't know. There's various different kinds.
Okay, so we're wait, because there's no ingredient salicylate in the Impossible Burger. You're inferring it because it says coconut oil. So I'm just asking you, is it all coconut oil that salicylate has? That have salicylates?
Can't say. But I assume would have salicylates. I don't know if that's for sure, but I wouldn't consume it.
Yeah, so here's the thing. I mean, it all depends on the concentration. So salicylates in a low concentration will almost certainly do nothing. Almost anything in a low concentration will do almost nothing or nothing. So you pointing that there's salicylate, what you need to do is show that there's a level of salicylate that is harmful, to show that based on the amount of coconut oil and the amount of salicylate concentration in this coconut oil, consuming the X amount of the Impossible Burger will have this amount of harmful effect. Like, that would be an argument you could run. What you can't.
But I don't think that's something that nature intended for us to.
Now you're just appealing to nature again. So appealing to nature isn't going to help you either. Again, nature didn't intend for us to go and be healthy into an old age. So you appealing to some things
in our food that actually
believe it. Okay, you're labeling. Okay, again. What is toxicity is all made by the dose. So you are already assuming your conclusion and your premise. It doesn't work like that. You need to show that
Toxin.
It's not. No. What makes something toxic? Believe it or not, there are quote unquote that are actually healthy in low doses. There are quote unquote things that are thought to be toxins, and they find out that actually in low doses they're actually beneficial and they're not toxins. It's not that a toxin is a toxin and that's just it. It's contextual based. It's very contextual based on the dose.
An anti-nutrient or said toxin, but at the end of the day, they're still a toxin.
Yeah, no, we do. No, we do. Okay, well then, if that's how you want to define it, that's fine. But then it would also follow that we should be consuming them in low doses.
Is that the more of it you consume, the more toxic it will become.
Okay. At some level, sure, but it actually doesn't follow at low levels. At low levels, we don't see that relationship. There's always a level of anything that's not going to actually harm.
Sure.
Even cyanide at low levels, you endogenously produce more cyanide that you would get from cyanocobalamin. At low enough cyanide, you can take low enough amounts of cyanide and you would have no effect on you.
Yeah,
so what you need to do, what you need to do. Okay, I'm not talking about if there's a need to. No, that's not what we were talking about, though. We were talking about. Look, you said there's a problem with iron. This is how we got on this conversation, and I said, well, number one, you need to show why we would need heme iron as opposed to any other iron, because when vegans supplement with other iron pills, they get better. Number two, you need to show that it would be a problem for us to consume the vegan form of heme iron, and you haven't done that.
Well, I can't say for sure. There is definitely a problem with iron. I'm saying I found these things to suggest that vegans have problems with iron.
Well, no, see, but you're misinterpreting what the study is suggesting. So there may be vegans who have problems with their iron content. That's fine. That's not the question, though. The question is, what happens when you give them elemental iron? What happens when you give them iron supplements? What happens when you give them more iron-rich foods? And the answer is usually they get better. And if you have a really rare case of a vegan who doesn't get better, who has this refractory anemia to all forms of supplementation and needs heme iron, there are vegan sources of heme iron. Now, you haven't made the case that would be problematic to consume.
Well, but I can make the case.
Okay. Can you show me what concentration of salicylates are in coconut oil?
No, I can't.
Okay. Yeah, but here's the thing, that's really important. Because if you can't do that, then it's important, because if you can't show me the concentration of salicylates that are in coconut oil, there's a harmful effect.
Yeah, but there's no reason to consume it in order to get hit.
Well, in this case,
which you can't get anyway.
Well, in this case, there would be a reason to consume it if there's a case of refractory anemia and someone's a vegan. So again, if you're going to claim that you claimed it was toxic, in order to substantiate that claim, you are actually going to need to show me the concentration.
No, I don't.
So then yes, you do. So is it your position? Wait. So is it your position that you don't need to show the concentration in order to make the case that something is toxic?
I said I don't need to show any evidence. What I mean is, I don't need to show any evidence.
You made a claim. You claimed it was toxic. Now I'm asking you to show that it's toxic in those concentrations. You need to actually show me the concentration in order to make the claim that it's toxic. If you can't do that, you need to back off your claim. And you can say you're agnostic about it. You could say I don't know.
Well, I pretty much did.
But you can't. But no. You said it's no. You said it's toxic. You didn't say I don't know that it's toxic. You said it was toxic. You made a claim. So are you going to back off of that claim?
You're asking how toxic is it and at what dose?
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you what dose is present in coconut oil.
I don't know.
Okay, so then how do you know that it's toxic?
Because it contains one.
That doesn't make it toxic.
Pretty sure it does.
No, just to be clear, if there is one molecule of the salicylate in coke, and you consume one molecule of it, that's going to be toxic for you. Is that your position?
Not necessarily.
Oh, well, then if wait, hold on. If that's the case, if you say not necessarily, then it is the case that it's dose dependent.
What I meant.
Then at least it could be the case that it's dose dependent. Look, if it's your position that no dose matters, it's toxic regardless of dose, then if there's one molecule of it, you should say it's toxic.
It's probably more appropriate to say it's a toxin regardless of the dose.
Okay, then who cares? Then if you're going to define toxin like that, why should we care if it's a toxin? Why should we care if it's a toxin if that's how you define the toxin?
Because you're saying
if it has no negative health outcome, why do we care if it's a toxin?
Because you don't need to consume toxins.
Why do I care about consuming it or not if there's no negative health outcome?
Because it's still a toxin. Just because.
Who cares if you're defining toxin that way? If you're going to define toxin in a way that it makes absolutely no difference to your health and consumed in a given amount, then why should I care if I'm consuming that toxin in that given amount?
Well, as I said, you don't know what you don't know. I could come out with a research drug. Let's just say I'm a chemist and I design a research chemical, and there's been no studies about any of the negative health effects, potential health effects of this drug. Would it be safe for me to consume?
I'm just curious, can you actually show me evidence that there are salicylates in coconut oil?
Yeah, give me a second. Yeah, I haven't read any of these, but you'll probably find something.
Wait, you haven't read them?
Nah, it's like common knowledge.
Okay, let me see what you're posting. Yeah, I saw this thing. Salicylate sensitivity. Okay. And where does it say that this is in coconut oil?
Probably somewhere.
Where?
I know you'd have to search for it.
I'm searching for it. Let's see.
I don't know, man.
It says low. It says here. It says low salicylate. It says low salicylate coconut. All right. So already. And let me see where the reference is. 5. Okay. Final association. Let's check this PDF out. So it's already saying it's in a low concentration. So, and as long as the therapeutic range of salicylates are about 15 to 30 milligrams per deciliter. So let's see how much is in here. I'm trying to track the reference, and I'm not actually getting anywhere. But the point being is, oh, here, hold on. It seems to be loading now. Oh, it links to something that's dead. It links to if you can find the reference that this thing is citing, then I would appreciate it. But it's getting me to a dead link. I'm trying to get the reference that your thing is citing, because you're not posting an actual study. You're posting like an article that tries to cite something that's also not a study. So I'm just trying to follow the links and hope to get to a study. But in any case, it doesn't seem like we should worry about this. I mean, it's your own source is admitting that these are in low concentrations.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's a toxin in food, there's no reason to consume it.
Well, no, because here's why. Again, we're gonna go over this again. So, if something is a toxin, and any toxin can have no effect on you, or even a beneficial effect on you, if it is present in low concentrations. Do you understand that point? Things that are labeled as toxins can have not only a neutral effect on you, but they can also have, in some cases, a beneficial effect on you, even if they are toxins at low enough concentrations.
Sure.
Okay, then how do you know there's no point of consuming it?
I'm just saying you don't have to consume toxins.
Okay, but no. But no one's claiming whether you have to consume something. That wasn't what we were talking about. You made the claim that something is toxic. That implies that there are negative health outcomes associated with it, or caused by it. And I'm explaining to you why that doesn't follow.
Nah, you kind of did a vegan brain fog there. I said that if something has a toxin, not necessarily toxic, because that would require a. So I don't know. I can't tell you
So
it's toxic.
Who cares? Then who cares?
It is.
Then who? Yeah, because you could be, again. It could, for all you know, it could be beneficial.
For all I know, but I know it's a toxin. It causes inflammation.
For all you know, it could be beneficial. Then why would you ever make a case that this would be? Are you trying to say this is problematic, or are you just saying, okay, well, there's this presence of this thing in it?
I'm saying it could be problematic. You don't know what you don't know.
It could be, and it could be beneficial.
Moreover, you don't need to consume it.
It could be, so it could be problematic, or it could be beneficial, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then why would that influence my decision of consuming it either way? It would just be a non-factor.
But you just don't need it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, how do you know that? How do you know that? Well, no. We're not talking about if we don't need something or not. That's not what the conversation was. Not changing the conversation. But it would be beneficial or not in this specific context. If you're saying this is something that may be beneficial and we can't get it, I'm saying we can get it, and you're saying, well, no, there's a problem because there's this compound in your source of heme iron. So I'm just saying, well, how do you know that's a problem? That's not actually beneficial. Why would it, if we don't know if it's beneficial or harmful? Why would it influence our decision making either way?
Well, it goes back to my argument. Would you take a research chemical with no data on it? You wouldn't.
That's not comparable.
You don't know what you don't know.
This is something, again, that's just not comparable. This is something that's been studied. It's been something that's been studied. It's probably been out for decades and been studied for decades. This isn't some new thing that came out in the lab.
Okay.
Here, look. Here's a paper I'm linking. I'm linking it in general. Okay. The presence of naturally occurring salicylates in fruits, vegetables, spices, beverages, both alcoholic and non-alcoholic, have been confirmed by several research groups. Although concentrations determined do not always agree, Swain suggests that a normal mixed diet contains total salicylates in the range of 100 to 200 milligrams per day, although other groups have suggested that this may likely be an overestimate owing to a lack of analytical specificity. Jackson et al. Suggested that the intake of dietary salicylates in subjects taking a mixed diet was only on the order of 2 to 4 milligrams per day, an amount probably too low to affect disease risk. However, the work reported here and previously suggests dietary silicate may be significant in vegetarians that can produce concentrations of salicylic that overlap with those seen in subjects taking 75 milligrams of aspirin per day. Because the anti-inflammatory action of aspirin is probably the result of salicylic acid, the concentration of salicylic acid seen in vegetarians it is plausible that dietary salicylates may contribute to the beneficial effects of a vegetarian diet, although it seems unlikely that people consuming mixed diet will receive sufficient intake of salicylates after the therapeutic effect. So, it's actually, by the way, thought that the COX-2 inhibition by this level of salicylic acid is beneficial, based on the publication I'm just reading to you. So, there seems to be reason to believe that not only are the levels of salicylates that vegetarians are consuming are not only not harmful, it seems to be that there may be reason to believe that they actually are beneficial. So your own point not only doesn't support your position, it actually supports my position.
Not really, because there's...
Not really, because what?
There's people with salicylate intolerance that aren't able to consume salicylates.
This paper was what? Wait, what?
There are people that are not able to consume salicylates that have salicylate intolerance. My point being is that you don't need to consume
intolerance? Wait, I can't hear what you're saying. Intolerance?
I'm saying people intolerance.
Oh, people with salicylate intolerance. Okay, and what dosage of look, if people have a salicylate intolerance, all I would just say is I would revert to things like elemental iron or things like iron gluconate, which has higher absorption than things like more oxide forms of. So iron gluconate, What's the problem with that? Like, what's the evidence that someone wouldn't be able to... So let's say someone has a salicylate. Like, I'll grant you this. Like, we can posit all of these rare things. So what's the problem with just supplementing with iron gluconate?
With iron?
With iron gluconate.
I speculate that it's not very bioavailable.
Iron gluconate is pretty bioavailable.
And another problem with it is, again, you have to supplement. You can't get it from the actual vegan diet.
Why? Who? Well, no. Number one. Wait. Number one. No. We don't. Number one. Who cares? Number one. Who cares? Number two. How do you know we can't get it from a vegan diet?
Well, I just linked a study that showed that.
That doesn't. That doesn't mean they can't get it from a vegan diet. That means that the vegan diet that they were employing, they weren't consuming enough iron. The conclusion well, no, the conclusion's not following from your study now. You're taking a study. No. It's evidence in your face. It's evidence that there are vegans who have been deficient in iron. It's not evidence that one cannot get iron on a vegan diet. And even if it was, who cares if we have to supplement with iron?
You can get some, but probably not enough.
You can get what?
You can get some, but probably not enough.
How do you know that?
Because I see them every day. They're pale.
No, but that's not evidence in terms of what one can get on the vegan diet. So you have actual evidence. No, it isn't.
If
Just again, you don't know. That's not evidence. So do you understand why that's not evidence for what you're saying? All that is evidence for. No, all you are saying there is that there are this particular set of vegans have had iron issues. To conclude that, and I'll grant that that is the case. But it doesn't follow from that this particular set of vegans, if they operated their vegan diet in a different way, could not resolve their iron problems. There's no entailment from the study. There's no support of that conclusion from the study.
It's still evidence in my favor that a vegan diet is possibly deficient.
No. Now you're changing. Ooh, that was really slimy what you did there. Ooh, that was slimy. Oh, wait a minute. That's not what you said before. Did anyone catch that? I'll repeat what you just said, just so everyone can see the slip. You said it is still evidence in my favor that the vegan diet is possibly deficient. That's not what you came out swinging and claiming. Now you're deficient. Listen.
The truth
no. Listen. Listen. I just. Listen, Luke. I just wanted to let you know. Please do not get slimy like this with me. Let me just tell you right now. It is far too early in the night to be putting on this much lube. Okay.
I'm telling the truth, man. Like, you may get little.
No, you changed
percentages of these.
You made a slip there. You changed your position completely in order to avoid. You saw exactly where it was going, and then you could not defend your position, and then you completely changed.
The vegan diet is a deficient diet.
Okay, that's not what you. No. Oh, now you're going back to the strong claim. Oh, so you're going back to the strong claim, not the weak claim. You said it's possibly deficient. That's what you said.
Yes.
Well, now is your claim that it's possibly deficient or that it's 100% deficient?
Well, so you may be able to get little percentages of different nutrients, but not enough.
Is your claim that it's Is your claim? Okay. Overall, the vegan diet is deficient. Is it possibly deficient or is it just deficient? Because any diet is possibly deficient in things.
No, it is deficient. Yeah.
Okay, what is it deficient in?
Well, for example, B12. I think.
Okay, B12. Yep, I agree. And then, what's the problem with us supplementing?
Well, it's not.
Great. So why should we not just be vegan and supplement with B12?
Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're supporting the vegan diet.
What's the problem with that? I'm supporting a diet that
But the
with
problem is you're
supplement.
admitting you can't get everything you need from a vegan diet.
No, I'm not claiming that we get every nutrient we need from a natural vegan diet. What I'm saying is that from a non-natural vegan diet we do, which includes supplementation.
Okay, so would you also supplement fatty acids, omega-6? Where do you get omega-6?
Would I also what?
Would
No,
you
I think
also-
omega. I think the data on omega 3s and omega 6 are very sketchy, and I actually don't think that there's actually good data that vegans actually don't have that far of a difference between omega 3 omega 6s than many omnivores do. And furthermore, no one actually knows the optimal ratios of omega 3s and omega 6s. And if you can show us evidence of what those optimal levels are, I'd be happy to see it.
I don't have evidence of what the optimal levels are, but I have like 4 studies showing that they're deficient.
Well, how do you wait? How do you know if they're deficient if you don't know what levels one should have?
I think there's a level that people are supposed to actually.
How do you know that?
Well, I don't know what the RDA is.
Wait. How do you know that someone is deficient in something if you don't know what level they're supposed to have?
Well, I don't know what level they're supposed to have, but
Then how do you know? Then how can you claim someone's deficient?
Well, by measuring.
Well, you're just going to measure a level, but how do you know that level is too high or too low?
Well, I don't.
Okay, then how can you claim they're
Personally.
deficient? Well, then how do you claim they're deficient?
I'm
You just
saying that there is a study, multiple studies, showing that.
Well, how do you? Mm-hmm.
Which would
And
support my conclusion.
How do you know?
Vegan diet is
Wait. Are you saying you have a study showing A, what the required levels are to not be deficient, and B, that vegans are deficient? Oh, then how do you know they're deficient with that study?
Because I've seen a study.
Okay.
I'll just link it.
Then did you read this? I'm just going to ask, did you read this study? Or are we going to both read this
Yes, I
together
read
for the
this
first
one.
time? Okay, and where does it say what the level is required for a given omega 3 or omega 6 in order to not be deficient in it?
I don't think it does. They just measured it in
So all it says, the proportional EPA and DHA were lower in vegetarians and in vegans, and the medias where it was only small differences seen in DPA, plasma EPA, EPA in proportions were not significantly associated with the duration of time that subjects were vegetarian and vegan. In vegetarians and vegans, plasma DHA was inversely correlated with plasma LA. So what? How does that get you to the conclusion that they're deficient? How does that get you to the conclusion that they're deficient?
Well, that just supports my my assertion.
How? No, it could go against your assertion. It could very well be that omnivores or non-vegans have levels that are just too high.
Are you saying that omega-3 is?
I'm just saying, based on what has been presented here, for all you know, those levels. All this study shows is that with respect to a given fatty acid, vegans had a lower level than non-vegans. Now, I'm asking you, what is that? For all you know, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. So, unless you can show,
can't overdose on it.
Unless,
as far as I'm concerned.
Wait a minute. You can't overdose on that? Really?
Not that I'm aware of.
You can overdose on anything technically. You can if you just can you imagine if you just made that 100% of your diet?
Is what I'm saying.
Again, even if you regardless of the question of overdosing, how do you know that having a higher level of it won't lead to a harmful effect as opposed to a beneficial effect?
Well, I don't know. All that I
Okay, then how are you? Then why would you use this study to claim deficiency? You're using this study to claim deficiency. All it's showing is that there are different levels. How do you know what the required level is?
Does it matter?
There's what? Yes, it matters. Because the reason it matters is because if the required level is really low, then it would, and even at different levels, it could be meaningless and it wouldn't show deficiency. And if there was a problem with having too high levels, it can actually show the opposite effect, that non-vegans are actually harming themselves by having too high levels. So in order to make your case, you actually need to make the case that here's what the required levels actually are.
So do you agree that vegans have low?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
So do you agree that vegans have low levels?
I agree that in this specific study, vegans had lower of proportions of plasma EPA and DHA. There's other studies, by the way. There are other studies, by the way, that show that they weren't that different. So it's important not to cherry pick evidence. So we're going to go to...
I have multiple studies, and I also have studies that the plant forms of omega-3 alpha-linoleic acid is not that bioavailable and convertible.
It doesn't... I don't see why... No, I'll grant you that, but I don't see why that matters if you can't show what level is required to not be deficient.
Well, it matters because that is where the vegans think they get the omega-3.
Again, you're not tracking. You're not tracking now. You're not tracking. It could very well be that even if we grant that, your conclusion still doesn't follow. Do you understand why? Because even if we're only converting a small amount of it, even if that was the case, it could very well be that the optimal amount is that small amount, unless you have evidence showing otherwise. So what you need to do is present evidence showing what the optimal level is, or showing what a healthy versus unhealthy level is, and then you know what the vegan levels are, and then you would have a case. Right now, all you're showing is that there are differences in levels.
I'm already showing that it's the diet
you haven't. Okay, no. Now you're going back to B12. Ooh, we're getting slimy again. Oh man, we're putting on more lube. We're not. Listen, don't try going back to B12. We already talked about that. I'm going to push you on this because I've got you here. You're making a claim about omega-3s and omega-6s.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah, so in order to claim that we have too low levels, you can't just show that we have lower levels with respect to another group. You actually need to show, no, you can, that in and of itself doesn't get you where you need. What you actually have to do is show that what you actually have to do is show that those low levels are actually terminate in an outcome. They terminate in negative health outcomes with respect to higher levels. That would get you your case. You need two things in order to make your case.
You measure the amount of omega-3 emitted and the amount of omega-3 vegans are. Therefore,
therefore vegans have lower levels of omega-3. But that could be a good thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Because sometimes having too much nutrients is a bad thing.
Show me a study that
Are you familiar with nutrient?
Toxic.
What? No, don't. Ooh, that's slime ball number 3 move. I never claimed one way or the other. All I'm saying is we don't know. In some cases, having too much nutrients leads to nutrient toxicity. In some cases, it doesn't. All I'm saying is I don't know the optimal levels, and neither do you. And in order to show that we're suboptimal, you actually need to establish some frame of what optimal is. And then you need to show what the levels are in different groups. So don't try to shift it back, the burden of proof back to me. I'm not making the claim.
Plant-based diet. Where do you get omega-3?
Vegans have some amount of omega-3, even if the conversion is not 0, by the way. So vegans have some amount of omega-3. The conversion is lower, but it's not 0. So the question is, if you want to say, is that deficient, or is that, for all you know, that smaller amount could be optimal, unless you can show what it is. And that's not even mentioning other sources of omega-3s. That don't rely on the conversion.
I know there's plenty of omega-3 fish, for example, I can't say the same.
In algae, there's omega-3s, but that's not even the point. The point is, you aren't actually showing vegans are deficient. In order to do that, you need to establish what deficient is.
Were you saying how much? You're saying algae has omega-3. No, it doesn't. It has alpha-linoleic acid, which is not omega-3. It gets converted to omega-3. It doesn't. I'm pretty sure algae oil has EPA and DHA.
That's just a false claim.
I don't know. I don't think you're going to go swimming. You're not going to go diving in the sea for sea.
Listen, algae oil does contain EPA and DHA. So I don't. It's yeah. It's just a false claim.
What about cholesterol?
Yeah, I think dietary cholesterol increases based on the latest meta-regression analysis. It increases serum LDL, and based on the Mendelian randomization studies, it seems to be, all things considered, increase your risk of cardiovascular disease.
How?
We don't need to know how, actually. We just know the outcome because we know it's causative because of the Mendelian. It was a Mendelian randomization study.
I don't think there's ever been a study showing that fat and cholesterol causes heart disease.
Oh, sure. Okay, so here we can go through this right now. So here's the latest Mendelian random. Here's the latest. It's a two-step process. So we're going to present you evidence from randomized controlled trials showing the relationship between dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol and saturated fat and serum cholesterol. And we're going to show you that increases in serum LDL cholesterol increase risk of heart disease. So that's the causal pathway. So here we go. This is an analysis of metabolic ward studies with saturated fat that I'm posting in general. And this is the latest meta-regression analysis on dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol. And this is a review, and it has the metabolic ward study. It has the Mendelian randomization studies showing that serum LDL cholesterol is causative, not just associated, but causative to cardiovascular disease.
Oh, that study was funded by pharmaceutical industries.
Which study?
The one on LDL.
Which one? The LDL causes atherosclerotic disease?
Yeah, the LDL.
Wait. This is an analysis of Mendelian randomization studies. The randomization studies. Wait, first of all, let's look at let me see where in the pharmaceutical. Where's the disclosure?
You have to look at the
funding. Okay, let me see. Okay, so pharmaceutical agents.
They're funded by Pfizer.
Meeting logistics. Unrestricted grants from Amgen to the European Atherosclerosis Society. Okay, so number one, couple things. So that's fine. Thank you for pointing that out. Number one, just pointing out a funding source doesn't actually discount a study. You actually, just like I wouldn't discount the study just because it's supported by the egg or dairy or meat industry. So that's one. But the two is this is actually a review. It's not an individual study. We can go to the individual Mendelian randomization. The only reason I post this is because it has the individual Mendelian randomization studies. And it's not necessarily the case that those studies are funded by the pharmaceutical industry. So we can go to
think they would fund.
This is a review. It's a review.
Whatever.
Okay, then I can just post you the individual studies that weren't funded by it.
Yeah, but why do you...
I can just give you... why is it relevant? I can just give you the... Look, if you want to dismiss it on that grounds, I can just give you the individual studies that weren't funded by it.
Because they're the one trying to push cholesterol.
Wait. Look, you... Again, I acknowledge that there are incentives and motives for many different...
It's a conflict of interest.
Sure. Okay, sure. So would you accept the individual studies if they don't have a conflict of interest?
No, I wouldn't anyway, because
Why? Why?
It just means nothing.
It just means what?
Means nothing. Everybody.
Why does it? Wait. Why does it mean? Why does it mean? Wait. If a randomization study shows that LDL-C is causative to cardiovascular disease, why does that mean nothing?
Because it's all based on associative studies.
No, it's not. It's a Mendelian randomization study. It's not an association study.
It's impossible to try to quantify that from what people eat anyway.
Yes, no. No. You're not following. It absolutely is possible to quantify changes in serum cholesterol from what people are eating, and it absolutely is possible to show causation of LDL-C. So here's another study that I'm going to post.
It's just epidemiology.
This is sequence variation, and no, it's not. This is not epidemiology. It's not epidemiology. It is a Mendelian randomization study. You're confusing the two. It's not an it's a Mendelian randomization study, and that has a randomization component, which makes it second tier to a randomized controlled trial. It is not a epidemiology study. It is not on the level of an epidemiology study with respect to inferring causation.
Yeah, but you have no mechanism by which cholesterol causes heart disease.
That's irrelevant. We don't need to know the mechanism.
That is very relevant because you
nope. You don't need to know the You can infer causation without knowing the mechanism. You do not need to know the mechanism to infer causation. It's just tangential.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the whole thing is funded by pharmaceuticals.
You can test. You can. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I just posted a Mendelian randomization study, and I'm not seeing any funding from pharmaceutical companies.
No, but the review is
Yes. So what? It's a review. Yes, the review is based on but the review is based off the individual studies that were not funded on it. So here's an individual study. Here's it published in the New England Journal of Medicine. This is sequence variations in PCSK9. Now, this was not funded by the pharmaceutical industry. What's your response to this Mendelian randomization study?
Let's have a look. As I said, this is associative. I like plasma.
Nope. It tests Mendelian. Nope.
Reduce risk.
Yeah, but you're not. What you're not understanding is that.
Study.
Nope, you're not. You're not getting it. You're not tracking. You're not getting it. You're not getting it. You're really not getting it. Okay, so real quick, I can explain to you how. So Mendelian associations in Mendelian randomizations test for causality. It's different from just an epidemiologic associative study. And the reason for that is because they look at single nucleotide polymorphisms and they look at what percentage of the variance changes they're called instruments, and then they examine what the instruments can explain a given variance. They can a given variance of it could be LDL-C, it could be HDL, it could be any marker. And then by accounting for that, they can look to see if people with these proportions of these single nucleotide polymorphisms have different outcomes. Now, the reason why this is not just association is because Mendelian randomization occurs when the alleles segregate during mitosis, and they segregate at random. So there's a built-in randomization that happens. So you're not just looking at pure association, you do have a component of a randomization, which allows you to make causal inferences based on that association. It's not just an association study if it's a Mendelian randomization study.
Still, it's all very wish-washy. You don't mechanism explain it.
No, it's that. So again, so there's a built-in randomization.
You certainly can't attribute it to diet.
Yep, you can. Yes,
No,
you can. And here's why.
You can't isolate what everybody.
Yep. Well,
everybody is eating.
we've already presented to you I presented a meta-regression analysis showing a relationship between dietary cholesterol and serum cholesterol, and I presented a meta-analysis of metabolic ward studies showing the relationship between saturated fat and serum cholesterol.
And how do you know what these people are eating?
Because they controlled what they were eating. It was a controlled trial. They were metabolic ward experiments.
What? They didn't control their diet.
Yes, they did. Oh, yes, they did. They did. What do you think a metabolic ward experiment is?
Where did they control for diet?
They controlled for diet as part of the trial. They controlled what they ate and what they didn't eat. That's what do you think a metabolic ward experiment is?
I don't believe you. Where does it say this?
Okay, we can go through
That's not ethical.
That's not what?
It's not ethical.
What do you mean it's not ethical? It's completely ethical. They volunteered to
thousands of people's lives.
No, it's completely ethical. It's called informed consent. They sign informed consent. They're explain what the study is. They're explained that you will be given a certain meals. We will control what you eat because we will be feeding you. They determine what they eat. I mean, why is this so hard to understand?
Where does it say this then?
Okay, sure. So let's go through. If you want, we can go through the study because I've actually gone through this. Here we go. All right. Okay. Okay. Published reports of dietary interventional studies conducted under controlled conditions that ensured compliance. Parentheses. Metabolic ward studies. End parentheses. That's what a metabolic ward study is, where the dietary compliance is controlled for. It's ensured that there was compliance.
Yeah. How do they do that?
By being the ones who feed them. So, for example, one example would be if a patient is in the hospital and you are controlling what they eat because you're the only one feeding them. So very easily you can modify what their diet is because they're in your building. You essentially the only access to food they have is you. So you can purely be the one to determine what they're eating. That's very easy to do.
Yeah.
You can have a healthy patient be placed into a room. You could in a hotel or whatever, and you can be the one to ensure that you're the only one who's able to feed them.
You still can't make the association with diet because you don't
Yes. Well, no, it's not association because it's randomized. So you can. Do you understand? Listen. It's not these. I have not presented a single epidemiologic. Nope. Again, it's associative, but it's the type of study that you can infer causation from. Again, what do you think a randomized controlled trial is? The point of randomization is that there's going to be an association in the randomized controlled trial, but that's not the point. The point is that infers causation. When you're faced with being unsure of a causal pathway or a confounder in an association, what you do is you randomize. That is the easiest way to get to the answer. That is yes, I can. It was controlled for. And it was randomized. So again, the point is that when you are faced with a question of whether there's an association or a causation, you can randomize and you can tell if the association is causative. You can infer causation. So what is your response? With that being said, what is your response to the metabolic ward studies?
Can't explain how cholesterol causes heart disease, and it doesn't explain how it relates.
What
to
is your
actual
response?
diet
It
and
doesn't.
foods.
That's not what it seeks to do. It's not what it seeks to do. Again, it attempts to infer causality. Now, what's your
We are
response to that?
supporting the vegan diet. We're talking about food. There's a discussion on.
I'm supporting. Again, that's not an answer to the question. What is your response to the Mendelian randomization studies inferring causation between LDL-C and atherosclerosis?
Don't trust it. It's funded by.
Why don't you? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. The study I posted to you was not funded by pharmaceutical companies. What?
Again, that particular one that you linked.
What's your response to it?
You can't explain.
It's not what it seeks to do. It's not what it doesn't seek to explain the mechanism. All it is there to do is distinguish between association and causation, and it concludes causation. So what is your response to that?
No response really, other than what I just said.
Which is what?
Which is it doesn't mean anything. You can't nail down what those people were actually eating.
Again, no. Now you're going back to the other study that was linked to you. So now you're being slimy again. So look, I don't think you're intentionally being slimy. Actually, I'll take that back. I think you might not just be not tracking now. So we're not talking about what they were eating, because we're talking about whether LDL-C, which is a serum marker, is a causative agent to atherosclerosis. Now, the Mendelian randomization study has inferred causation as opposed to association. What is your response to the Mendelian randomization study that I've linked to?
It's crap.
Why is it crap?
Because you can't explain how it causes heart disease.
Why do we need to explain that?
Because it may not be the thing that actually.
But then why would why is it the case?
Of diet.
Then why is it the case that after randomization it's associated with it even after randomization?
Don't know.
Okay, but you understand that that's a criteria that almost everyone accepts as a causal inference.
Does that mean
that's why randomized controlled trials exist?
Does that mean none of us should eat cholesterol? Not necessarily, because again, we don't know the foods that are associated with. What
it means is that all things considered equal, it seems to be the case that eating cholesterol will have a negative effect, some amount of a negative effect. Yes.
In what circumstance? On what diet?
It seems to be the case on any diet, because this Mendelian randomization presumably would have people from all sorts of diets.
So then you're
as did the as is, well, by definition, I mean, I guess you can have synthetic cholesterol on a vegan diet and still be vegan, but I wouldn't advocate for that either.
Do you agree there are benefits to eating cholesterol, to having cholesterol?
I don't see, well, having cholesterol, yes. To eating cholesterol, I don't see any benefit.
How about increased testosterone?
I'm not aware of any evidence that consuming cholesterol increases testosterone to statistically significant or clinically significant.
I'm pretty sure we could find something.
Are you just looking up this on the spot, or do you actually know? Are you just like looking for what you're looking for when you're searching for this? Or do you actually have studies in mind that you...
No, I know from personal experience that it increases my testosterone.
You know from Oh, no. Please, let's not go this route. Come on.
And actually, it is a precursor.
Come on, dude. Okay, well, wait. Again, just because cholesterol is a precursor doesn't mean consumption of cholesterol increases testosterone. It doesn't follow. All right. Do you have data? Yes or no? Listen. Do you have what's your data?
Reading it.
You're reading it. I mean, I'm just gonna make an observation here. Like
you can't get cholesterol on a vegan thing.
I'm like, don't you see how it looks when you are having a debate and you're trying to have an honest debate, and then you're just looking up studies that support your position without actually having those studies, and you're just saying, well, I'm sure I can find something that supports my position, and then you're typing up You're clearly just typing up something to support your. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't seem like you're operating in good faith here. Like, imagine if I did that. Imagine if I did that with you. Imagine, like, well, I'm sure if I just looked up something for the vegan diet, I would be able to type something into my computer and find something that supports the vegan diet. Here you go. Like, would you accept that?
Are you trying to say that I'm biased?
I'm trying to say that you're engaging in motivated reasoning. It's not just that you're biased. It's that you're not arguing in good faith.
Well, I don't believe that the vegan diet is healthy. So
no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about what your beliefs are. I'm talking about the way you're operating.
The destroyed my house. So of course
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you're operating in good faith, you shouldn't be on the spot looking up things that are.
What is good faith? What is that?
Okay, look.
There's no such thing.
Look, do you have the data or not? Look, do you have the data or not? Do you have data or not? You know what? I'm not going to talk about the meta anymore. Do you have data or not?
On cholesterol and testosterone?
What? Yes, that's what you were asked for. No, okay, so you do not have data that cholesterol statistically or clinically affects testosterone.
No.
Okay, great. So what's your response to Mendelian randomization studies and the metabolic ward studies?
The ones you listed before.
Yeah. What's your response?
They're associative. They don't explain.
No. There's a random. There's a random. Nope. There's a Nope. Nope. They're not. Nope. The Mendelian randomization I posted was not funded by any pharmaceutical company, and there was a component of randomization in there. Nope. It was randomized. That's what randomization means, because those alleles segregate randomly. So it's not, you're allowed to do that study, and you're allowed to infer those associations as causative. That's the whole point of a Mendelian randomization study.
Any of those people are eating.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
no, it doesn't matter. It's because the conclusion is just that the conclusion of the Mendelian randomization study is just that LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis. Serum LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis. Now, what's your response to that? We're not talking about diet right now. We're just talking about whether serum LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis.
It's bullshit. I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe it? What's wrong with the study? Why don't you? What's wrong with the study then?
Don't believe it.
Why don't you believe? Why don't you believe the study? What's wrong with it?
It's associative.
No, again, we went through this already. So just because, again, there is a randomization built into a Mendelian randomization study. So it's not just an association.
Nothing to do with diet.
It's not just, okay, we're not talking about diet right now. Now you're trying to evade again. So we're just talking about whether serum LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis. I presented to you a Mendelian randomization study. Now what's your response to that?
My response is, how does that relate to diet?
We'll get there. I'll explain how it relates. But before we get there, I want you to have a do you think LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis?
Oh yes, totally a cause.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Now, do you accept that consumption? Then wait. I know that what I said is, do you accept that serum LDL-C is causative to atherosclerosis?
No.
Okay, so so I linked you a Mendelian randomization study inferring causality as opposed to just association. What is your response?
I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe it?
No evidence.
I just linked you the evidence.
No mechanistic data. No explanation.
But wait. Why do we need mechanistic data?
Because you need to be able to explain how that happens.
No, you don't.
In order for me to believe.
Why? Listen, let me ask you this. Before we knew about the mechanism for smoking causing cancer, it has associative studies. Do you take the view that all of that is wrong in smoking? We couldn't actually infer at that time that smoking causes cancer because we didn't know the mechanism by which smoking causes cancer?
Quite possibly.
Oh, okay. So just to be clear, you take the view that at the time in which we were inferring smoking causes cancer based on the associative study, that was actually invalid for us to do. That we actually had to wait until
because you could be weed instead.
Okay. Just to be clear, do you believe that smoking causes cancer?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. Okay. So do you? Okay. All right. do you believe that? Let me ask you this: do you believe that high doses of cyanide kill someone, or do kill someone? Okay. Do you know the mechanism by which that happens?
Basically, it's just pure poison. You probably stop breathing.
Wait. But what? Yeah, but no. But what's the mechanism by which cyanide kills people?
I don't know.
Okay, so you don't know. So can you infer that cyanide kills people?
Probably, yeah.
Wait. How do you? No. You don't have an explanation.
Because it's a toxin.
Wait. No, but that's not explaining how the toxin works. No. I can do this too. I can just label cholesterol as a toxin, but like that doesn't explain anything. Do you have an explanation for how high levels of cyanide kill people?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so can you infer that high levels of cyanide kill people?
Probably.
Oh, so you can infer. How can you do that if you don't have the explanation?
I'm just making an assumption.
You're making an assumption. So why would you make that assumption? Are you just saying it's an assumption, or can you reasonably infer that high levels of cyanide actually kill people?
Well,
is that a reasonable inference?
Myself, so I know kind of.
Is it a reason? No, hold on. Answer the question. Look, you said that we can't infer causation without a mechanism. So I'm just asking you.
No, I didn't say that.
Then why would you care if the Mendelian randomization study didn't have a mechanistic explanation?
Because for me, in order to be able to believe it, I need to be able to explain the phenomena.
Can you explain the phenomena of large... Great. So can you explain the phenomena of large doses of cyanide killing someone?
No, I can't.
Okay, so do you believe that large doses of cyanide kill people?
Probably.
But in order to believe that something will do this, then you need to have the explanation. But you just said that you don't have the explanation for this, but you do believe it.
Yep.
Okay, but you see the problem now, don't you?
It's not a contradiction.
Yes, it is. Yeah, would you like me to derive it for you?
It's not a contradiction.
Would you like? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Look. You said in order for me to believe X, I need Y, and then you say for the cases in which I believe X, I need Y. Here is a case in which I do not have Y, and I believe X. So I believe I do and do not need Y in order to believe X. It is the case, and it is not the case that you need Y in order to believe X.
Nah, that's
the contradiction.
You're saying is and not. Mm-hmm. I said probably. That doesn't mean that I'm certain. That
wait, no. You said, hold on. You said in order for you to believe it, you need to have the explanation. Now I asked you, do you have the explanation that high levels of cyanide kill people? You said no, and then I said, well, do you believe that high levels of cyanide kill you? And then you said yes.
Yeah, but
you also said in order. You also said in order for you to believe that these things do these things, that you would need the explanation. Its explanation is required in order for you to believe it. That entails a contradiction.
No, because it doesn't mean that I necessarily need an explanation in order for me to conclusively say that something.
Now you're changing what you said. Okay, you can modify what you said, but I'd just like to point out you're
probably. It's not black and
white. Okay, so then we can probably then why can't you probably infer? So now why can't you probably infer this in the case of the Mendelian randomization study for LDLC?
Because I don't have an explanation at all.
No, you just said you didn't need an explanation for probable inference.
I said not necessarily.
You said yes. So you said you don't necessarily need an explanation for probable inference. So I'm asking you, so I'm just going to ask you again, why is it the case that you need an explanation in the case of the Mendelian randomization study for LDLC?
Because I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe it?
Because I don't have an explanation.
You just said you don't necessarily need an explanation.
That's right.
So why don't you believe it?
Because I don't believe it.
Because what?
Because I don't have any explanation. If I have an explanation,
But you just said you don't. But you just said you don't necessarily need it. But you need it. Why is it the case? Why is it the case that you don't require an explanation? Hold on. You just said that you don't need an explanation in the case of high levels of cyanide killing people, but you do need an explanation in the case of LDLC causing acids. So what's the difference between the two for which you would need an explanation for one and not need an explanation for another?
Faulty logic. I don't need an explanation.
What is? That's not an answer to the question. No. I didn't say you need it or didn't need it. I'm just saying, in one case, you are accepting the inference as probable without explanation. In the other case, you are not accepting the inference as probable without an explanation. So what is the difference? Why would you require an explanation in one case and not the other case? That's the question.
Because I have the knowledge that... Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Hang on.
Can't hear you.
Yeah.
Hello? Can you hear?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah,
so the question on the table is, why is it in one case you require an explanation, the other case you don't?
Because I have knowledge that cyanide is quite probably toxic.
How do you have that knowledge? How do you know that?
Because I've consumed it.
Because you've consumed it.
Yep.
Okay, and if you didn't consume it?
If I didn't consume it, then I wouldn't know it's toxic and wouldn't.
Okay, so then you wouldn't. Okay, so just to be clear, if it was the case that you did not consume cyanide, you would be agnostic on whether high levels of cyanide would kill people.
Yes, I would have no idea.
Have you consumed ricin?
Ricin? What's this?
Have you consumed ricin?
No.
Okay. Do you believe that high levels of ricin kill people? I'll just tell you right now that ricin is actually more toxic than cyanide.
Okay.
Do you believe that high levels of ricin kill people?
No idea.
Okay. Do you believe that high levels of bleach kill people? If you drank a bunch of bleach, do you believe that would kill you?
Yes.
Okay, do you know the mechanism for that?
Nope.
Have you ever consumed bleach before? Do you have the knowledge of what it's like to consume bleach? Have you ever consumed bleach before, yes or no?
No.
Hello?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so we're not meeting the criteria of you ever having the knowledge of consuming it before, and we're also not meeting the criteria of you knowing the mechanism. So why do you accept that high levels of bleach will kill you? Why do you believe that?
Because it's damaged my skin. It's probably not safe.
Yeah, but you don't have the mechanism for that. Again, you don't have. We already went through this. You said that in order for you to make a probabilistic inference, you need to know the mechanism, unless it is the case that you've consumed it yourself. You haven't consumed it yourself, and you also don't know the mechanism.
No. I didn't
Why
say
do you
you
have
need the mechanism. I said that I need a mechanism to believe it.
Yeah, yet here's a case where
mechanism.
you don't. Here is the case where yes, there is a mechanism. Here is the case by which you do not know the mechanism, or you don't have a mechanism. And there is also a case where you haven't consumed it. You believe it. So again, you're still in a contradiction.
Not really, because I can believe whatever I want.
Yep. No, but you just based on what you've said, you were contradicting yourself. You said in order in order to accept this belief, I need to either A, have the mechanism, or B, have the knowledge of what it is like to consume it. Here we have the case in which you do have the belief, yet it is not the case that you have the mechanism, and it is not the case that you have the knowledge of consuming it. So those two things contradict each other.
I've had it on my skin. I know.
So it is, and it is not the case that you require the disjunction of having the knowledge of consuming it, or having a mechanism.
Black and white.
It is, and based on what you've said,
philosophy textbook.
The required listen. Based on what you've said, it is, and it is not the case that the disjunction of those two things are required. So it is and is not the case that those two things are required. That is a contradiction.
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
Listen, what are you? All right, if you want to clarify, go ahead, clarify. What are you saying?
There is no mechanism by which LDL causes heart disease. And how do you know there is no mechanism? Because I haven't seen one.
That doesn't mean there is none.
Well, according to me, there is none.
How do you know there? Well, do you have a mechanism for that lack of mechanism?
Nope, but I'm pretty sure.
Well, you just said that you need a mechanism in order to make these beliefs.
No, I don't. I can believe whatever I want, as I said.
Okay, so but again, why? Just you acknowledge that just because you are not aware of a mechanism doesn't mean a mechanism doesn't exist, right?
No, I believe you have to be aware of things for them.
So you actually have, in order for a mechanism to exist, you actually need to be aware of it. Is that your position?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, well,
man, there are a lot of mechanisms that have just evaporated from reality right now, my dude. Damn. Holy shit! Like, wait. I just want to be clear about what you're actually saying right now. Are you actually saying that in order for a mechanism to exist, it needs to be in your personal mind? And if it's not in your personal mind, it just doesn't exist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how it works. You're the only one experiencing it, so you wouldn't.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Okay. So wait. I'm just curious. Like, so are you saying that, like, for example, let's see. I mean, do you acknowledge that there are mechanisms that we are going to learn about in the future?
Probably.
Well, how could that be the case? Because you are not aware of them now, and so doesn't it follow that they don't exist because you're not aware of them?
They just don't exist yet.
Oh, but as soon as you become aware of it, they will exist.
Yes.
They'll just come into existence when you're aware of it.
That's how reality works.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, all of these mechanisms, like, let me just ask you this, like, when we saw a supernova, for example, when you look at the stars and supernova,
there are no stars. You've never seen that in your life.
There are no stars. Okay.
There's no space either.
There's no stars and there's no space.
Nope.
Okay, and because you aren't aware of it.
Yeah, you've never seen it.
Okay, so they don't exist.
Yep.
Okay. What else doesn't exist? Let's see. Does my backpack exist?
Don't know.
Well, no. It's not that you don't know. It's that you do know because you're not aware of it. Remember, you said if you're not aware of it, it doesn't exist.
Might as well not exist.
Are you aware of my backpack right now?
Now that you told me about it.
Well, you don't know. You're not aware of it because I could be lying to you about it.
You could, but that concept exists in my mind.
Oh, no, I'm not asking you about the concept. Now you're weaseling. I'm asking you about the physical object. No, I'm not asking you about it as a concept, as a physical object.
As a physical object?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't exist.
It does. So my backpack as a physical object does not exist.
No.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a picture of my backpack. Okay? And I'm going to post it in this Discord. And I just want you to know if the moment, on your view, the moment my backpack exists is the moment at which you have seen the picture. Is that what you're affirming?
Let's have a look.
So again, is the moment that the backpack will exist is the moment you see this picture on your...
No.
Well, no. Again, are you aware of my backpack
It's
as a
just an
physical
image
object?
projection.
Are you aware of... Okay, are you aware of my backpack right
I
now?
don't know if it's your backpack. I can't identify. It's like you could have.
Okay, okay. It doesn't have to be mine. We don't have to say my backpack. The backpack in this picture, like the picture I'm about to send. Are you aware of this picture existing? Are you aware of the picture existing?
Wait, did you send it?
I didn't send it yet. Are you aware of the picture existing?
That doesn't exist.
So the picture is not on you.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to post the picture right now. Okay? Here's the picture. And now, is it your view that this picture just came into existence once you saw it? Do you see the picture?
Yeah, I see a picture. Yeah.
Okay, so okay, today at 9:53 p.m. it was posted. When did this picture of the backpack exist? When did it come into existence?
The picture 6:53 p.m.
Okay, that's when it came into existence.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I have it clearly timestamped in my phone that I took it before then. I mean, you must know that you must know that I had to take time to take the picture of it. Like, it clearly existed before it hit your eyes. Like, don't you realize that?
No.
So it's just your view that it just materialized.
This is just my reality. That's
how did it?
That's how it works. If I die,
Do you wait? Can let me ask you this? Do you have a mechanism by which this backpack just popped into existence?
You sent me a picture of it.
No. That's not an explanation, though. Do you have a mechanistic explanation of how the backpack popped into existence?
You uploaded it to Discord, and I...
Well, no. That's a contradiction. Because if I uploaded it, that was before you saw it, and you already said it didn't exist before you saw it. Now you're contradicting yourself.
Well, now it's come into existence.
Well, no, but how could I upload it if it didn't exist?
I don't know. Maybe you popped into existence too.
Right. If we just popped into existence, sure. Then the question is, do you have a mechanism by which I popped into existence and the backpack popped into existence?
Are you talking about physically? Are you trying?
Any mechanistic explanation for you to have this belief?
Not really. Other than
okay, but then why do you believe it? I thought we need it to be the case where it's a distinction between. Well, so you can see it. I understand you can see it, but if you don't have the mechanism, and you haven't consumed it, you haven't had the knowledge of consuming it, which were your criteria before, then you told me that you needed those things in order to have the belief.
Yes.
Okay, so is it the case?
As I said, I still don't know if that's your bag. You have sent it to me.
Do you accept the Do you accept the picture exists?
Yes.
Okay. Do you accept the picture popped into existence when you saw it?
Yes.
Do you have a mechanism for that?
No.
Have you consumed it?
Have I what?
The second criteria you gave me for believing, you gave me two criteria. The first criteria is knowing what it's like to consume it. The second criteria you gave me was having a mechanism.
Are you trying to define by which mechanism I believe something? I said I can believe whatever the fuck I want.
No. I'm just basing this on what you told me. You told me that you need two criteria in order to make a probabilistic two criteria in order to make an inference. The first thing you said was you need a mechanism. The second thing you said, actually, not even to make an inference, you said in order to have the belief. First thing was mechanism. Second thing you said was, or I can have the knowledge of consuming it. Now, here is a case where you have a belief.
I can believe whatever I want. So I can believe that bag exists or not.
Wait, if you can believe whatever you want, then it is not the case that in order to have a belief, you need a mechanism or knowledge of consumption.
For me personally,
that's also
in order to believe that cholesterol causes heart disease. That's personally
in order to look. Listen. If you're telling me you can believe whatever, if you told me you can believe whatever you want, and if you also told me that in order to believe something you need these criteria, then it is not the case. It is and is not the case. Then you could believe whatever you want.
Except you're making the assumption that I own these criteria to be able to make the belief, which isn't true.
That's what you've told. That's what you've told me. Okay. Look, if it is not the case that you need a mechanism, then what's your response to the Mendelian randomization study for LDLC being causative to atherosclerosis?
I simply don't believe it.
Why do you simply not believe? Why? Okay, but again, we already established that's tangential. We already established that you don't need an explanation.
But I would like one.
Okay, but just because you would like one doesn't mean you need one to have the belief from this inference. So again, what's your response to the Mendelian randomization study?
I actually need one to believe that.
Why do you need one in one case and not in the other case?
Because I get to choose.
Because you get what?
What I believe in, again.
Why do you have the belief in one case and not the other case? Why do you believe that you need an explanation in one case and not the other case? Look, I know you can. That's not the question. The question isn't if you can. The question is why. Why are you setting up an epistemic standard by which you would need an explanation for an inference in one case and not in another case?
That cholesterol causes heart disease.
Okay, so how do you explain how do you explain the findings of the Mendelian randomization study?
There is no explanation.
Why did they infer that it's causal?
Causal from what?
Causal LDLC causing atherosclerosis. Why did the Mendelian randomization study infer causality?
Don't know.
You got a decent amount of data to explain.
Well, there's nothing.
Let me ask you: is there anything that would change your mind?
Yeah, if you were able to explain how diet affected.
We already again. Listen, we're going in circles. We already established that this isn't like criteria you have. This isn't again. Look, do you have an explanation of how bleach? Do you have an explanation of how consuming large amounts of bleach would kill you?
There's no to that.
Do you have why is an explanation required?
For me, it's required to believe it because I don't believe it.
Do you understand how ridiculous it is to require an explanation? To say that you require an explanation to infer causality?
No. Why is that?
Because I'll tell you. I'll explain. It's ridiculous because if that were true, then it would be essentially saying that so many of the classical inferences to causality that we've made that have panned out, and we know it to be true validly, we're invalid for doing so. It would also entail that all sorts of ridiculous things, that it would entail that you wouldn't be able to infer that drinking large amounts of bleach would kill you because you don't know the mechanism for that. It would also entail that drinking or consuming large amounts of any harmful substance or many different harmful substances would kill you would not be a valid inference because you don't know the mechanisms for those either.
You're stuck in black and white reason.
No. Again, look, I'm just telling you what follows from your
fallacy, by the way.
No. This is what follows from affirming that we need a mechanism in order to infer causality. If it is the case that we need a mechanism in order to infer causality, then it is also the case that in any instance where we don't have a mechanism, we cannot infer causality. Which on your
that, but in my
so in that case,
personally, I need a mechanism by which cholesterol causes diabetes, which there is.
But then you also need a mechanism. Then you would also need a mechanism. Do you also need a mechanism by which drinking large amounts of bleach would kill you?
No.
Why not? Why not?
Because I understand that bleach is toxic, and I've had experience.
Why do you understand that? Have you consumed bleach? Have you have experience with bleach?
I haven't consumed it, but I've had it on my skin, and that for me is enough to understand that if I consumed it.
If you didn't have it on your skin, would you make that inference? Would you be okay with having that belief?
Yes. Because I have knowledge that people have killed themselves by drinking and consuming bleach. So it's a good idea for me to not do that.
How do you have that knowledge?
I don't know, you hear
maybe that's just associative.
Indeed.
Okay, so how can you infer causality?
How do I infer causality?
How are you inferring causality for bleach?
Do you mean mechanism?
How are you inferring causality without a mechanism and without knowledge of that it's just not associative and causal instead?
I didn't say that.
You said that you need a mechanism in order to infer causality instead of association. I'm asking you, in the case where you don't have a mechanism, such as bleach, you said, well, I have knowledge about my skin. So I asked you, well, what if you didn't have knowledge on your skin? And then you told me, yes. And then I asked you why, and you said you have knowledge because of other people killing themselves. And then I asked you, how do you know that's other people killing themselves being just an association, not a causation? And then you didn't know how to answer that. So then it goes back to the original question. How can you infer in the case of bleach that there is a causation and not just an association? Based on the criteria, the standard that you've provided.
In which case I didn't have knowledge.
How do you don't have knowledge in this case?
Well, if I didn't have knowledge that
you don't. You don't. How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know it's how do you know it's not just associative? Is your knowledge that is based on just associative knowledge?
I'm not sure why this is relevant.
It's relevant because I'm trying to show you why your standard for inferring causality leads to ridiculous conclusions.
Why is it ridiculous?
It's ridiculous. It leads to the conclusion that even drinking a large amounts of bleach, you wouldn't actually be able to infer that it causes harm.
Probably does.
How are you making? Okay, now you're changing it to a probabilistic inference. Does that require a mechanism?
Well, that's what I was saying this whole time.
Does that require? Answer the question. Does a probabilistic inference require a mechanism?
For me?
Yes, for you.
No.
Okay, then why can't we make the probabilistic inference based on the Mendelian randomization studies for LDLC causing atherosclerosis?
I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe it?
Because I haven't seen.
Don't say it doesn't. Don't say explanation. No, we already established that probabilistic inference doesn't require explanation. You better not say explanation. Nope. You've already conceded. Nope. You've already conceded that in the case of a probabilist. You already conceded that in the case of a probabilistic explanation.
You believe you have a belief.
Nope. Listen. You've already explained. In the case of a probabilistic explanation, you've already conceded that in that context, you don't need a mechanistic explanation. So then my question to you is, why is it in the case of the Mendelian randomization studies that we can make a probabilistic inference?
Because I don't believe it.
Why don't you believe it? And when you answer this question, please don't say mechanism or explanation, because you've already conceded you don't need it in order to believe that. So why don't you believe it?
Because I really haven't seen any evidence. Whereas bleach, I have knowledge that bleach can be harmful. I have zero knowledge.
Is your knowledge associative?
Yeah, sure, you can say that.
Okay, but then how do you know it's causal?
I don't.
Okay, so how do you believe? How are you making a probabilistic inference? How are you making a probabilistic inference for causality? Yeah, but that could just be associative. How are you making a probabilistic inference of causality if you're just based on associative information?
Does it really matter? You drink bleach, you're probably going to die.
How do you know that? That could just be associative. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Not like this.
So what's your point?
The point is that based on the standard of inferring causality that you've given me, you can't even infer basic things that we all accept to be true, that drinking large amounts of bleach will cause harm to you. So you need to rethink your standard of causal inference, is what I'm suggesting to you.
Yeah,
and then you can come back after you've gone to the drawing.
I won't believe.
That's tangential. That's tangential.
To be able to believe something.
I'm working within your framework. I'm working within your framework of the requirements that you've posited. So what I'm suggesting to you is the framework that you've posited. I'm just working with that framework, and I'm showing you that you could not even conclude basic things that are you take to be true. So what you need to do is rethink. You need to rethink.
But
you should try it.
It's not. This isn't how life works.
You should try logic and reason sometime.
I do use logic and reasoning, but belief is not something that is.
You've done a bad job of it in this debate. But listen, listen. Look,
cholesterol causes heart disease.
I know. The question is not whether you can choose to believe whether cholesterol causes heart disease or not. The question is what is your standard? What is your standard by saying we can make a probabilistic causal inference in one case and not in the other case? And you gave me a standard. I'm just working within your standard to show that based on that standard,
one of them is having an explanation.
You couldn't.
But I can still believe what I want.
You couldn't even based. That's not the question. It's tangential again. So based on the standard you've given, you couldn't even conclude. You couldn't even make a probabilistic conclusion that drinking large amounts of bleach will kill you. So you really need to rethink your epistemic, rethink your standard of what is required.
That was my conclusion.
Do you conclude that drinking large amounts of bleach will harm someone?
No, I believe it could probably harm or kill somebody.
Okay, and how do you how are you making that inference? How are you making that
knowledge that damages people? And
is that associative? Is that associative? Is that associative?
Yes.
Okay, so how are you making a causal inference based on associative knowledge?
Just put two and two together.
Again, I can just say that for cholesterol. Cause and effect, association. So something is just associative, and that makes it cause and effect.
Except bleach is toxic. You drink it.
Again, the question.
And then the effect.
Is, you have an association. Yes. So you have an association, and then you have an outcome. So can you infer causality from that, on your view?
Probably, yeah, I would say probably. It
So
would
you
cause
can.
death.
So it is your view. So it is. Is it your view that you can infer causality from association?
Sure,
Great. So why can't I infer causality from association in the case of atherosclerosis and LDLC?
because you can't explain it.
Can you explain the bleach?
We know bleach is toxic.
Can you explain the mechanism by which it's toxic? How do you know bleach is toxic?
It
You
burns.
can't explain it. Can you explain?
It,
Can you explain it?
it's just it burns. It kills cells. Skin
Can you?
cells.
That's not an explanation. Can you explain the mechanism by which bleach is toxic? Can you explain the mechanism by which bleach is toxic?
It probably kills cells.
Yeah, I'm not interested in what it probably
Do I
does.
know for
Can
sure?
you explain?
No.
Can you? Okay, you don't know. So you don't know the explanation. So then that's not going to help you there. It's not going to be a symmetry breaker. It's not going to be a symmetry breaker between LDLC and atherosclerosis and bleach killing someone. So do you have another symmetry breaker you'd like to offer?
I don't know anybody who's died eating.
You don't know
I haven't seen
anyone?
anything- I haven't seen anything which has suggested that cholesterol in meat is toxic.
Okay, so I'm giving you something. Now I'm giving you something. Have you? By the way, have you? Now I'm giving you something.
In fact,
It's not
we
a symmetry
require
breaker either.
cholesterol.
Again, just because that doesn't follow, just because we require something doesn't mean high amounts of it isn't harmful.
Do we require bleach?
Okay, so there are okay. We can do this very easily. Vitamin D. Do you accept that high levels of vitamin D are harmful?
They can be.
Okay. Do we require vitamin D?
Yes.
Okay, so just because something is required doesn't mean you can't get too high of a level of it, right?
Sure.
Okay, so what's the point of you mentioning that we require it?
But there's variables there that would only happen in unhealthy.
Just because you require something doesn't mean too high amounts of it aren't harmful. By the way, can you explain the mechanism of vitamin D toxicity?
Usually, if somebody's kidneys doesn't work, can't process the vitamin D in it, increases to toxic levels.
What is the mechanism? What's the mechanism by which vitamin D causes toxicity?
Probably.
No, not probably. What is it?
Trying to remember.
Okay, so you currently don't know the mechanism by which vitamin D causes toxicity. Do you have the belief that too high levels of vitamin D cause toxicity, that they have harmful effects?
Do I know?
Yeah. Do you have the belief? Do you have a belief that vitamin D in too high of a dose can cause problems?
In unhealthy individuals, yes.
And what's your criteria for knowing that? You don't have a mechanism for that.
I've read some studies.
You've read studies? What kind of studies? Are they associative studies?
I don't remember.
Are they associative studies?
No, I think they were mechanistic studies.
Mm-hmm. Do you have them?
No, I don't keep them.
Okay. So, as you don't have any data right now about that, but you see, the point is that you have beliefs that are you don't seem to be following a framework, an epistemic framework, consistently. And based on the criteria you've given me for inferring the difference between association and causality, you don't seem to be following your own criteria. You just seem to be all over the place here. So I think you really need to go
to follow my criteria or not.
Not
to believe
right. So sure. That's fine. You can posit a criteria and say, well, my criteria can be followed or not followed. It just doesn't. Sometimes I follow it, sometimes I don't. It's just follow it and randomly not follow it. You can posit that, but that makes your criteria pretty meaningless. I think you really need to go back.
So
It could be, yeah, but there's no reason anyone else should take that as meaningful.
That's fine.
And I don't even know why you should take it as meaningful if you randomly follow it. Anyway, I think
cholesterol causes heart disease.
I know, and it doesn't seem like anything would. It doesn't seem like you're giving a consistent criteria for what would change your mind.
Well, for that specific case, I need an explanation. Otherwise, I won't believe it.
Yeah. Is there any reason why in that specific case you need an explanation and not in other cases?
Because I have reason to believe. Basically.
Okay. So all I'm saying is that is a crazy view, and the reason that is a crazy view is because anything that we can infer in the future for which we don't know by these same methods, we would have to reject causal inferences without a mechanistic explanation. That is an insane view.
Why is it insane? What's your definition of insane?
Sure. It's insane because, well, it's insane because it would lead to, we would have to conclude that a whole bunch of things that everyone takes for granted and that it is trivially true that are actually harmful, that we can't actually conclude that because we don't have an explanation. And it follows in the future that when we discover new things by these methods and we don't have an explanation for the mechanism yet, we're going to discover things that are going to be harmful in the future. We don't have all the knowledge of everything that's harmful. We're going to discover poisons that we haven't discovered now, and we're not going to know the mechanism, but we are going to have some data on them by which we can make inferences. And the fact that we're not going to have the mechanism to understand it is not going to be relevant. You don't need to understand the mechanism to understand that to infer that there's a causal pathway to a harmful effect.
Well, if you're talking science, that is true. But
if you're talking, but that's what we're talking. We're talking science. I was under the impression we were having a scientific conversation, or at least trying to.
Not really. I don't base my.
Oh, okay.
Scientism.
All right. Okay, so I mean, then I'm not sure what else I can discuss with you. If you're not going to, if you're just going to look, if you're just going to say my beliefs are my beliefs, and scientism is just I'm not going to subscribe to. What is there else to converse about?
We haven't really shown that the vegan diet is.
There's nothing I could do to show it. It's just your beliefs. If there's what would you posit? What would you posit I show? What would you posit I show you? Science? You've already rejected that.
Show me where you can get vitamin B12.
What? Why? Through a scientific method? Why would I? Why?
In food.
Look. Do you reject science? Do you reject the scientific method?
Not necessarily.
Oh, so in some cases you do?
Yes.
Which cases do you reject the scientific method?
It's based on empiricism.
Which cases do you reject the scientific method?
I'm not going to go into it, dude. Like, it's a long conversation.
Look, which cases do you reject the scientific method?
On empiricism.
That's not an answer to the question. Okay, do you reject the science? Okay.
Needs to be observable.
Would you? What is empiricism?
It's basically the study of material reality, physical phenomena.
Okay. Here's my question to you. What separates that from everything related to science? Like what so if that's how you're defining empiricism, why wouldn't you just deny all science?
Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
Because it's not perfect. It's not a perfect system.
No, that's not what no, listen, look. Define empiricism.
I already have.
Okay, then why does that definition not lead you to rejecting all science? You said you reject empiricism.
I don't have to reject it.
You just said you do.
I don't see how this supports your argument that the vegan diet is adequate for humans.
Again, I'm just showing you how your view leads to crazy conclusions. That's all. How your standard
crazy by
because
what
again,
definition?
by everyone listening here, and everyone
That's
probably
just
almost
horrible.
everyone who listens. Well, again, I'm not saying that makes it wrong. I'm just saying that look, if you're gonna, you can be a solipsist or whatever. You can reject also reality external to your view. You can reject other minds. You can do all these things, but there's not really much of a point of me conversing with you at this point. Because what could I possibly show you?
You admitted that you can't get what you need on a vegan diet. You can't get.
Well, no, that wasn't the debate proposition. I never agreed that
you have lower levels of omega-3.
That doesn't irrelevant. Listen. We never agreed to a debate proposition that I could get B12, so I haven't lost that. We never established what was the requirements for a deficiency in omega-3s, so you haven't made that case. In fact, and then you've come out and you've denied science. So I don't know what I can give you. What can I possibly give you to change your mind?
Show me that the vegan diet is nutritionally adequate.
How could I do that if you reject science? What would I do it with? Science?
Show me that you can get B12.
How could I even I've already admitted that we can't, but even if we could, how can I
you admit
how
that
can
it's
I
nutrient deficient.
how could no listen. How could I possibly do that? You're asking me what would I show you? Would I show you data? If you reject data, what am I going to show you?
But it doesn't matter if you show me. You've already.
Right. What could I possibly show you? How could I possibly do that? What am I going to show you? Why would we have the conversation?
Show me why you're.
How can I show you? You've rejected science. How can I show you? If you reject, you don't
need science to explain why you're vegan.
Okay. Then what am I gonna show you?
What am I going to show you? How you're vegan.
How can I show it to you? Look, if you're asking me, listen, if you're asking me to show you that you can get a certain amount of nutrients on a vegan diet, how could I show you that without appealing to some sort of science?
You can just tell me in your own reasoning.
My own reasoning is science.
That's not your own reasoning. That's
look, if example, can you get adequate amounts of retinol from beta carotene on a vegan diet? What am I going to present to you other than some scientific data for that? Like, what do you expect me to present to you?
Your reasons for supporting the vegan.
And what do you expect those reasons? And what do you expect those reasons to be, if not scientific reasons?
Maybe ethical reasons. Maybe
ethics. No, that's just a category error. You're giving me a normative reason for a descriptive claim being true. That doesn't even make sense.
So you're not vegan.
The proposition is not normative. The proposition is just descriptive. The proposition is it is the case that on a vegan diet we can get sufficient amounts of retinol from beta carotene. Why would I give you a normative reason for that? That doesn't even make sense.
Are you even vegan?
There's no ought. So what am I going to present to you for that to support that proposition other than some scientific reasoning? What other reasoning would I have?
What about your own reasoning? Actually adopting a vegan diet, supporting it, and believing that it's nutritionally sufficient.
What could I possibly present? What reasoning could I possibly present to you other than scientific reasoning?
Why don't you want to kill animals?
Why don't I want to kill animals is a different question.
Why don't you want to eat animals?
Okay, we can get into that, but I would like you to answer my question about what I possibly present to you.
Well, a valid reason why you should be starving yourself on a vegan.
What could I possibly present to you with respect to the description? What can I possibly present, if not scientific reasons?
Logic and reasoning.
It's an empirical question. The question is it's an empirical question, and what can I present to you other than an empirical evidence? It's not a question. It's not a question that you can just derive logically. You actually have to go out in the world and make observations.
Yeah, what are your own observations?
How it's from the data, or rely on other people's observations with peer-reviewed evidence.
That's not going to tell you anything.
What can I possibly give you? You're asking me an empirical question, and you're asking me to answer it through non-empirical means.
But this is a debate, so want to come up with.
It doesn't matter if it's a debate or a conversation or whatever it is. Look, you're asking me an empirical, and you've rejected empirical evidence. So what are you expecting me to give you?
A contention, at least.
I don't even know I don't know how I would communicate with you. Even
you don't know the contention.
How could I contend with you if the contention is on an empirical issue and you reject empirical evidence?
Aren't you the one that asked for a debate? Yet you don't have an argument contention.
You were the one who came. Here. Listen. Look, I think you're lost.
I'm not lost at all, man.
You're very lost here.
I'm perfectly.
You can reject
on a me-based diet.
You've rejected empirical evidence, and you're asking me to present to you some form of reason other than empirical evidence for an empirical issue. I don't know what to say.
You can provide whatever you want.
All right. Is there anything else? Is there anything? Is that all? I think we're done.
Reason.
I'm sorry, buddy.
You can't do it.
I think. All right. You can go back. You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board on this one. I'm sorry.
Because you don't have a reason.
You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board.
Starve yourself vegan ethically.
I think you have to.
You don't care about nature.
I think it's over here. I'm sorry, Luke. I'm not going to be your father this time.
Why are you vegan?
Oh, I'm vegan for ethical reasons.
Oh, now you say you got some.
Well, that's not what we were debating. I'm just. Yeah, no, that's not what we were debating. I'm happy to debate you on that. But if you want to know, if you want to curious. I'm happy to debate you on the ethics too. It's getting late though, to be honest. We can have the ethical debate tomorrow if you'd like. Would you like to have the ethical debate tomorrow?
Oh, I'm good. I don't think it's a lot.
You want to have the ethical, Luke? Would you like to have the ethical debate tomorrow?
Lost the debate within 15 minutes.
Loki. Do you want to have the ethical debate tomorrow?
No, I think we're done. I got other things to do.
Okay. All right. Have a good one, buddy. I love you.
See you, bro.